And now it's time for our first Fireside chat of the day, ushering payments, FX, and aid in an era of Web3 utility. Please give a big round of applause for Sunil Sharma, CEO at CoinGape, and Miriam Kiwan, Vice President, MENA at Circle, and Co-Chair Digital Assets, MENA Fintech Association. Here they come to the stage.
So, hi everyone. We just had an amazing and inspirational talk, and I believe that puts cryptocurrencies, blockchain, Web3 right into the center of our focus today. This conversation particularly we have today is going to dive more into crypto payments. It's going to dive more into stable coins, and especially we will be talking about an amazing company I'm sure you all know about, Circle, and they are worldwide known for issuing the stable currency, stable coin, USDC. So that is going to be the focus of our conversation today, and we welcome Miriam here on the stage. Even before we start discussing some serious questions, I'm sure you all have a few questions about stable coins. You all are following the news. I understand that. All the regulatory news around stable coins, USDC and all. But even before that, I want to kind of take a moment and give a round applause for Miriam because the amazing educational background she has, the wide range of experience she has in payments, in banking, and now she's implementing all that into Web3. So before I delved out we talk about stable coins and crypto, I want to take a moment and ask Miriam that you can right now work anywhere in the world, in any company. Then why Circle and why Web3 particularly?
Wow, I didn't expect that question. Thank you very much, Sunil. I'm very excited to be here. Why Circle and why Web3? Why Web3? It was probably by accident. I started diving deeper into the Web3 space back in 2019. I was focusing mainly on building tech ecosystems and working with founders and, in the UAE. And I got really interested in the crypto space. I started investing, I started learning, and that became sort of the beginning of my journey. And I didn't know that today I'll be sitting here basically playing a part in building that sector. Why Circle? Again, I started following the company in 2019 when they just launched sort of USDC. They were just about a year into the market. And I was very interested in well-regulated platforms that were closer to the regulators as well as playing a very important role in the market. I also respect the company for the role they potentially will have in terms of ensuring financial inclusion in the long term. I believe that stablecoins play a very important role in terms of onboarding the marginalized parts of our networks that are not yet on Web3. And again, it's a great team. I know Jeremy for the past few years, and the more I met sort of his team and I spent time with them, the more I was very impressed. We have very mature people within sort of a Web3 company, which you don't tend to see very much in this space.
All right. So before we move to the next question, how many here in the audience have actually made a stablecoin transaction in the last 1 year? Awesome. And how many of you have made USDC as a specific transaction?
Gonna have to change that.
Yeah. So this talk is all about changing that. Stable coins, they are there at the front when it comes to crypto payments. Right now, if you're somebody who is accepting their salaries, who is expecting their payments, then stable coins is that stable medium through which you can keep the intact part of a currency while you actually accept these payments. So with that in mind, we move to our next question. And this question is, a bit controversial. But yeah, at the same time, it's actually one of the largest debate we have right now around stable coins, that when we compare stable coins with, let's say, Visa or MasterCards, do you think this is something of a friendship collaboration that is going on, or is this some competitive environment that we are looking at in the future?
Actually, on the contrary, I think it's a collaborative sort of environment. Actually, both Visa and MasterCard are partners of Circle. If we look at the numbers and the sort of the type of transactions that took place last year in stablecoins, I think we reached about $7 trillion in value, which is half of what MasterCard and Visa processed last year. I think this is likely to change. I think the last forecast I saw is about 20-fold in the next 3 years. And this is a great, I think, proof for the payment industry that USDC and stablecoins like USDC actually add value to the payment ecosystem. It supports these large players in terms of adopting stablecoins and actually, I would say, transforming their business model, which has existed probably and has been the same for the last probably 100 years. For me, an example of this was a recent partnership that Visa, Solana, and Circle developed. I think it was about a month ago, which focused basically on the transactions of USDC on the Solana network and through the Visa network. For me, that's a powerful example that shows the utility of stablecoins, but also more importantly, it shows the role of stablecoins in terms of connecting or bridging the traditional financial sector with the Web3 space.
So just to emphasize, the adoption around stable coins, some of you may not know about it, but last year we had 7 trillion stable coin settlement. And this is half of Visa and MasterCard put together. So this was a huge achievement in terms of where the stablecoin adoption is right now globally. And in the next 5 years, we can definitely see stablecoins surpassing the traditional methods of payment when it comes to the global efficient payment methods. Now, when we are discussing stablecoins, we can't leave out CBDCs, right? CBDCs have to be discussed. Now, how many in the audience don't know the difference between a CBDC and a stablecoin? Everybody in the audience knows the difference, CBDC and stablecoin? That's amazing. That's amazing. So, Miriam, then we can directly move on to you. Otherwise, I would have asked you to kind of illustrate on that. But right now, if you see consumer adoption in terms of stablecoins, in terms of CBDCs, it is largely being propelled by the government organizations, right? So governments coming out, launching their own central bank currencies. So do you see these CBDCs as a competitor on the consumer side? Or do you think that there is some form of intersection there?
I mean, it's good news that we already know the difference, but I think it's important to differentiate between the two, because when you look at central bank digital currencies, these are purely issued by central banks, and which tends to dictate how they're used, how they're governed, and how they circulate around the economy, versus stablecoins, which can be issued by either regulated or non-regulated entities. In my opinion, I think the role of CBDCs and stablecoins can coexist, and we're likely to see this as the market grows. I believe that CBDCs will play a role in the wholesale space, and I think Sam mentioned that earlier, where the banking system will be the main user, sort of to facilitate payments and transactions and potentially government transactions as well. Whereas CBDCs will complement that role by going directly as a retail sort of digital currency that will sort of, again, complement in terms of payments and in terms of helping with peer-to-peer transactions, which CBDCs cannot do. That's the world I see in the future, and I think we're seeing some of the regulations that are being built around sort of clarity around the role potentially of CBDCs versus stablecoins in the long term.
So we have discussed stablecoins versus CBDCs versus the ongoing other payment methods. Now I want to ask specifically about USDC. So as per the data with USDC already crossed around 12 trillion worth of on-chain transactions. So these are on-chain transactions. And it just seems that this is now skyrocketing, right? But if we kind of take a backseat and try to understand that what are those 2-3 factors that are actually creating a differentiation when it comes to people adopting USDC.
I think there are 3 key factors that are converging and are driving the popularity and the adoption of stablecoins like USDC over the past few years. Number 1 is technology. I think the technology development has been improving at an incredible speed, both improving the user experience, whether that's about identity management or privacy or security. And I believe that blockchain and to a certain extent, the technology behind sort of stablecoins has been part of that development where we're seeing an internet native economy and social structure being built around this. Where I go back to what I mentioned earlier, where we're going to start onboarding marginalized communities that were not able to access financial infrastructure in the past, and now they're not only accessing sort of financial services through this, but also being onboarded on the Web3 space. The second factor is regulation. I think we're moving from speculation to utility when it comes to the digital asset space and specifically for stablecoins. And I think as we grow into the next phase of the sector, I don't believe that we can really scale to the potential where we can get to without regulations. I don't expect us to be accepted by the traditional financial infrastructure unless, again, regulations on board, and the same goes for institutional adopters as well, which we need for us to go into the next phase. So regulation is very much at the heart of this, and this is a theme that has been very important over the last 18 months. I think for a Circle as an issuer has been very much behind this move, and we very much support it. Stablecoins are, again, part of those discussions, and we look forward to the upcoming frameworks that should be hopefully coming out in the next few months. And the great thing is that the UAE is part of very much a network of very progressive policymakers and regulators that are ready to embrace innovation while at the same time improving the security and safety for users. Finally, I would say the third factor is retail crypto adoption. I think this has been driven mainly by sort of some of the economic challenges or the landscape, mainly in emerging markets. It has very much impacted how much sort of, I think, awareness that's been built over the past few years around crypto. And if we look at the number, let's say, of users of crypto around the world, we have about 1.7 billion out of those that are literally unbanked. But at the same time, a quarter of them have access to smartphones. Right, so when we look at these users, the way they've been onboarded into the financial system is through, basically most of them has been through potentially stable coins or crypto because they could not access the banking system. I think this is likely to grow, especially if we take an example from the MENA region where you see remittances, the fees around remittances seem to be quite high. I think it's about 6% in the region, and it's even higher in Africa, which reaches about 8%. That comes up to about $60 billion if you look at the full region in terms of fees. So I see stablecoins playing really a role in terms of reducing that cost. We have numbers that show that the cost of remittances can be reduced up to 80%. With the use of digital assets and stablecoins itself. And I think this is way ahead from what the UN SDGs goals have been for remittance fees, which I think is around 3%.
Awesome. So I hope all in the audience have made a stablecoin transaction as well as a banking transaction, right? So how many of you feel actually that, yes, this is a far more superior technology as compared to what we have been experiencing while doing payments in the past? Cool. Okay, so next question is about, a bit of a trust part on the stable coins. So how many of you are actually worried while your money is right now in the banks? I am worried, to be frank. So if, let's say, given a chance, how many of you would like to preserve your savings in stable coins? Or in the coming future, you see that rather than having our money in the bank accounts, we would like to save it in terms of a stable coin. So this is my next question, Miriam. You know that...
I see the adopters versus the
So of course,
skeptics.
I mean, so in the next few years, we do see, that if the banking system continues the way it is going right now, then we will have far more adoption around stable coins as compared to banking institutions. So Miriam, this is my next question now, that what is Circle or USDC in terms of savings, particularly savings accounts? What does USDC or Circle is doing to kind of promote this particular aspect? To help people trust more on the stable coins, to kind of use it as a savings medium, not only just payments.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as part of our expansion to this region and other parts of the world is the commitment not only to introduce and improve awareness about USDC and the use cases that we're seeing that will genuinely have impact in the long term, but it's also to educate. We are aware that not everyone is fully aware of the role of stablecoins and that not all stablecoins are created equal. So probably the way we manage the funds that come from the users is a very important element that differentiates USDC and Circle from other players in the market. For example, the funds that we receive are completely segregated, and in this case, I think we can be seen better than and probably more secure than a bank. The customer funds are usually fully segregated, and they sit under a regulated SCT, regulated public fund, which is managed by our strategic partner, who's BlackRock. And that fund sits, 80% of that fund usually sits in BNY Mellon, which is one of the largest systemic banks around the world. So that's one way of us making sure and securing sort of the customer funds. The other 20% remains usually in the banking sector, and that's mainly for liquidity purposes to allow our clients to redeem instantly when they need to. So I think for us to convince sort of the end users, although we don't deal with retail users directly, we're working very, very closely with our partners. These are crypto exchanges and many other sort of institutions that are the channels for these retail users. But at the same time, we're also educating, we're improving awareness, we're doing workshops to ensure that people understand the difference between stable coins and what makes a good one versus not a good one.
So, I mean, hyperinflation, right? We all are seeing a lot of news around it. We are daily hearing some countries impacting with it, right? And in MENA especially, we are seeing certain countries which are now being kind of totally into the grasp of this hyperinflation phenomena. So what is your kind of a message to them, or what is your advice to them when it comes to using stable coins, or when it comes to as a means to kind of, protect themselves from this hyperinflation? Do you have a message for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially for countries, and we've seen few of them on the list of the data that came out recently, countries like Egypt, Turkey, Morocco, you name it. I would say definitely use stablecoins, but I would say use regulated US-backed stablecoins because they are the ones that can allow you to hedge against inflation and also to preserve your wealth in the long term. It just allows the user to send, spend, and receive sort of their digital cash and to convert it whenever they need it. So if we look at, for example, freelancers, which we tend to have a lot of in this region, whether in Lebanon or again in Turkey or other places, we're seeing a trend where these employees or even freelancers are actually receiving their payments in stablecoins. It used to be in the past they would prefer BTC or ETH or other digital assets, whereas now we're seeing a growing trend for stablecoins. If we take Turkey as an example, given what's happening with sort of the inflation rate and devaluation of the currency, we actually have partners on the ground and banks that are already paying their employees or giving their employees the option to convert their lira immediately to USDC. So for me, this is a trend that we're likely to see much more of. whether that's in sub-Saharan Africa or the wider region here. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very excited about sort of building this market and really showing the impact that's possible and what can be done with a stable coin such as USDC.
So now let's come to the next part of our discussion, of course, the aid and charity and philanthropy, right? And since we already understand the costing and the budget that is required to basically, do these charitable transactions, and USDC, surprisingly, is actually playing a very key role there. I mean, as for the data I have, in 2022, we saw 70 million USDC powering charitable giving. So in terms of the impact of USDC or stable coins in charities, how do you see this moving ahead, this trend? I mean, do you really see a kind of an spike in adoption there?
We are already seeing USDC being the preferred tool of what we call blockchain, blockchain sort of impact donations and aid. And I think this is likely to grow. What is important about beyond the savings that we know about, I think what's important about the use of regulated stablecoins in this instance is the fact that you have instant access to digital cash, which can be converted. You have a faster, a more transparent, and also a system that it is resistant to corruption and hyperinflation in some markets. So what does this do? It offers the end user, it makes sure, first of all, that whoever is meant to receive that money receives it without any intermediaries. And number two, it gives them the option to either immediately off-ramp that into cash or hold it as saving and access it whenever they need it. So we are partnering already with many NGOs like UNHCR, like the Stella Foundation, and many others. And we have use cases where we have been very, very successful with these collaborations, whether that's in providing donations to Ukraine, for example, or providing access to payments to sort of frontline doctors in Venezuela during the COVID era, and we have many other examples where it is very popular for charitable and aid.
Yeah. So now the next question is actually, so these all questions, guys, I mean, these are actually the kind of, we got these through surveys. So the survey was run for 7 days on all of our network websites, media, and these questions actually came from there. So there is one interesting question that we got, that I would like to ask you. So imagine you're traveling around the world, okay, trying to introduce people to USDC. Which 3 countries do you think would be the most enthusiastic about adopting it, and why?
Okay, I'm going to be biased. The UAE is going to be one of these 3 countries, and there are obvious reasons for that. First of all, it has been one of the most progressive countries in the world when it comes to adopting, becoming a digital hub, a digital asset hub. Number 2, regulations. Again, we have very progressive government and regulatory framework. And number 3, the UAE is one of the top 3 countries in the world for outward remittances, which makes it a very strategic hub when it comes to impacting what we do on the ground, which comes to, again, remittances and savings and all of that for those who need it the most. And UAE is literally a corridor to some of the largest countries, including India, Philippines, Pakistan, etc. So for me, I'm very excited about the prospect to serve those markets through the UAE. Second market, I would say Turkey.
Okay.
The largest market in the wider region. Very exciting use cases again, hedge against inflation, sort of, I would say, cross-border payments, etc. The use case around saving is another one. And the third one was between India, I would say Nigeria, just to sort of cover sort of sub-Sahara. Again, Nigeria has been ranked number 2 in the world this year when it comes to digital asset adoption. And it's another exciting market where there's a huge demand for USD, which can be basically compensated through USDC, and there's a huge demand for cross-border payments as well as impact and inclusion, etc.
Okay.
Hello.
I think we're due to...
Yeah, we are done just... any question from audience? We can take one question. Yeah, please.
Okay, I think I heard all of it. I'll try and answer it. I think it's referring to basically sort of the challenges that we had in March with the DPEG. And then, so in March, as you all know, SVB collapsed. We had exposure in terms of our own, sort of the 20% that I mentioned that we have available for liquidity was sitting in SVB. What people didn't know is that we had managed to take that money back. Unfortunately, the DPEG happened, and also this is what people don't know, is that the DPEG happened on the secondary market. No one was left, unable to redeem directly from Circle. And that impacted us, and basically at this point, we are still rebuilding the market. Our competitors seem to be in markets where we haven't been present, mainly. I think Circle is becoming a much global company, and I think my presence here and my team's presence here and in APAC and other parts of the world is a testament of the efforts that we're making to really grow much faster. But we have to keep in mind that regulation is extremely important to us. So we will not do things that probably other companies would do to make sure that we always stay on the right side of regulations.
I think we've got one more quick question at the front here, yeah?
Do you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Here we are. Thank you so much for this nice interview. Very interesting. I've got a question regarding payments in USDC in commodity trading. I've come from a commodity background, and we see more and more customers who face problems making payments in US dollars, because as you know, all the payments have to be cleared in the United States. And practically every payment, there's questions, KYC, AML, why and when and how. So is there already a bulletproof solution for companies to use stablecoins for payments?
As I mentioned earlier with the example of Visa, our partnership with Visa and MasterCard, for example, allow us to do that. So it's already been done.
Yes, but Visa, we talk about $10-20 million payments, so it's not a Visa kind of payment.
There are other things that we're doing basically to facilitate that. Is we're building global banking partnership networks, as well as digital assets as a service network of partners, and some of them are in this room, that are helping us allow that to be processed locally.
Okay, thank you.
We actually have time for a couple of more questions, so we'll keep this conversation going. Lady in the pink.
Any more questions?
Yeah, lady in the pink.
Thank you very much. I must say I kept raising my hand about wanting to store my quote wealth in stablecoin. However, the reason why I did this is because you mentioned I come and live in a country where I am based is Egypt. We have a very, let's say, very vague and a big question mark around the stability of our currency. However, how can I even get access to stablecoin? Given that from your perspective, are you looking to collaborate locally there, or are we going to have to get a VPN and go on the dark web to open an account? So I'm just really wondering, because this is something I absolutely need to do this year. So.
Very good question, and I think you have an expert next to you who can actually answer those questions better than I can. Yeah, I mean, we all know that, for example, in Egypt, we are unable to have official presence with digital assets. However, when you look at the data, it's one of the largest countries in the region when it comes to adoption. I believe there are OTC desks and probably certain merchants on the ground that are facilitating these at a premium, usually. An alternative way of accessing, you as a user, for example, you cannot directly come to Circle and buy USDC, because we only deal with B2B players who have to go through a very cumbersome KYC and AML could be the Coinbase or the Kraken of the world, or the Rain, for example, then you are able to do that. And you can actually keep it on the exchange, or in my case, I offer un PG and I keep it on my ledger.
Throwing it back open to the floor. Any more questions? I'm scanning the room in case I'm missing anyone. Please put your hands in the air so we can clearly see if you do have another question to ask to the chaps on stage. No. No takers. Well,
No takers.
I think you've talked for long enough. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. And
Thank you.
hopefully, we move to a stable coin economy soon.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks.